السلام عليكم. اليوم راح نعمل انترفيو مع البروفيسور روبرت براندنبرجر. الدكتور روبرت حصل على درجة البكالوريوس من معهد ETH بزيورخ، درس الرياضيات والفيزياء. بعدها انتقل إلى أمريكا إلى جامعة هارفارد، نال درجة الدكتوراه من الولايات المتحدة. بعدها انتقل إلى كامبريدج ليعمل بوست دوك تحت إشراف العالم الكبير ستيفن هوكينج. حاليا بروفيسور روبرت براندنبرجر هو بروفيسور في جامعة ميغيل، حائز على كندا ريسيرش تير 1، وهو أعلى منصب ممكن يحصل عليه الباحث في كندا. بروفيسور براندنبرجر تخصصه في علم الفيزياء أو علم الفيزياء الكونية النظرية Theoretical Cosmology. إسهاماته كانت تتركز ب Inflationary Cosmology، وهو نموذج حل المشاكل الموجودة في البيج بانج موديل، وأيضا له إسهامات كبيرة في مجال سترينج كوزمولوجي. هلا رح نعمل انترفيو مع بروفيسور روبرت براندنبرجر ونناقش فيها عن أهمية هذه العلوم للوطن العربي ومستقبل هي العلوم النظرية بالوطن العربي. تابعوا معنا.
Okay, Professor Robert Brandenberger, it's nice to discuss a few questions with you. My first question is somehow personal. Why did you choose physics when you were just a young kid?
Okay, so first of all, what I first chose is to become a teacher.
Teacher?
That's what before I chose what I was going to do, I knew that I wanted to be a teacher at some level, as opposed to someone who works in a company. When I talk to students, I was given two options. Do you want to be a teacher, or do you want to be work in a company? I don't give them the option to be pure research.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew I wanted to be a teacher, and I enjoyed learning things, and I enjoyed the flexibility that one has as a teacher. So that was before I knew what I was going to do. Now, there were some things I was more interested in than others. I was interested in math, physics. I was also interested in geography and history.
Mm-hmm.
And probably the fact that my parents are scientists probably tilted me towards science. But then once I had made up my mind that I wanted to do science, then I think I chose physics because it's the most basic of the sciences.
Mm-hmm.
And mathematics is a main tool, so I did the combined degree in mathematics and physics.
So you decided to go to physics?
Yeah, but that was long after I made the decision that I wanted to go in the teaching direction.
So you decided to be a teacher. Was that because you were inspired with a teacher, or because you like learn things and teach it?
It's both. So as a teacher you can educate people,
Mm-hmm.
and I think in that way you can have a broad impact on the population. So if you work for a company, then you work for the company, and maybe the company does something that is not good for society.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if you give some basic education to people, that's basic education, and that's important for society overall. But then also I enjoy learning, so there's a combination of these two things.
Mm-hmm. That's really good. And what do you think are the requirements to be a good theoretical physics, or to be successful in this
To be
field?
successful in theoretical physics. Okay, so I have very different views on this question than some other people. Like some other people will say you have to be excellent in mathematics,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to be brilliant calculator. But I actually think that the most important qualification that you have to have is you have to be curious.
Mm-hmm.
So I think curiosity is number one. You have to enjoy the material, you have to enjoy learning, and then it helps if you have a good mathematics background. It helps, but it is not absolutely required. But it is absolutely required that you be curious.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not curious, if you're just an excellent calculator, you can be very good in classes, and you get A's in all the classes. You can even do a good PhD. Then at some point, your lack of curiosity will prevent you from making the ultimate breakthrough.
Mm-hmm.
So again, one of my former students who is now a professor at Brown University. He came from a very underprivileged background. In high school, he only learned how to run because he had to run away from the gangs. He grew up in a slum area. But he had lots of ideas. He was curious. And obviously, the fact that he doesn't have a good mathematics background makes it a bit more difficult for him, but the curiosity means that he can still do good work.
Maybe a good example for this, Michael Faraday, for example. He had a formal education,
Right.
but he was really curious. And
That's a good example. Good example.
he made a breakthrough in our understanding for electricity and magnetism.
Right.
Can you give us an example of how theoretical physics played an important role in development for a country, even for the long term?
Yes. So now, this is a question which has several angles, because physics, theoretical physics, has had many important consequences. Some have been good, some have been half good and half bad. So, for example, electronics. We wouldn't be able to do these recordings without breakthroughs that were done 80 years ago in theoretical physics. So in recognition of this, Mike Lazaridis endowed an institute for theoretical physics, the Perimeter Institute, because he made his fortune by electronics, BlackBerry, cell phone, an old type of cell phone. So he recognized that the contributions that his firm made to technology, to the advance of society, was based on theoretical physics. Now there's always a time lag. So what you do in theoretical physics won't have an immediate application, but in the long term it will. So now another example is our understanding of the nuclear structure. So now that has had these good and bad effects. So on one hand it gives us understanding of microphysics, it gives us nuclear power. On the bad side it gives us nuclear weapons.
For the Manhattan projects in the Second War.
Right. So, but again, these are two examples of key impact of theoretical physics.
So the scientists or theoretical physicists have moral obligation about theoretical physics and science.
Yeah, they have to realize that what they contribute into, what they think is pure science, can be used by others. They have to be aware of that. I wouldn't claim it's their responsibility. They're not responsible for what's done with it. But they have to be aware that their contributions can be used or misused. So now in my own research area, I'm actually shying away a bit from these very basic conceptual problems. So my research is more using things that have already been developed in a new area. So I can claim that I'm not doing research which is too sensitive. I view it more as art being made with mathematical symbols. So this is my research on cosmology.
So, in the Arab world, in the Arab countries, why we should take theoretical physics, astronomy, and cosmology seriously?
So first of all, I think we should take physics serious, and we should take modern physics serious, because every society needs teachers who can train students in the applications of modern physics, and they need to be at the forefront level of modern physics. So this is why I think it's important for any country to have people who study modern physics. So just think about applications in medicine. Now machine learning techniques which are being used and developed by theoretical physicists, by theoretical astrophysicists, they might have applications not only in astronomical data analysis, but also for cure of cancer, for determining where the cancerous cells are. So I think the reason why I would recommend any society to invest in theoretical physics, in physics, is to form a group of very highly qualified teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So now there's another aspect. Cosmology, astronomy, in a certain sense, it has a component of art. Because we would like to understand the universe, we would like to explain it, we'd like to draw pictures. So we'd like to give talks on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think every society should invest in art, music, painting, drama, but investing in theoretical physics, cosmology, it's also a contribution to the art.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the way that I would answer these questions.
So you would say that theoretical physics and cosmology is a point of view to look to our universe.
Yes, it's a way to view our universe, and there are many ways to view our universe. And I think all of them should be supported, and that will benefit society. People are not just machines. People enjoy culture. They should enjoy science. So I find many people who tell me that they really would have liked to be able to enjoy science, but they don't have the background to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you train more people to get the background, then more people can enjoy the beauty of cosmology, for example.
By equations, not only by pictures.
Equations is just a way to describe. It's just a language. It's not the science itself.
Mm-hmm.
So which language you use to present your understanding of the field, that depends on your audience.
Mm-hmm.
So again, if you lecture to students who are science students, you will use the mathematics language. If you lecture to the public, you will use a different language.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we should start by training our qualified teachers in physics.
I think so.
Mm-hmm. And what is your advice for the young Arabic students which are interested in cosmology and theoretical physics, and they are not motivated by the environment where they are?
Okay, this is a question I have difficulty answering because I don't know the environment they're in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I
So
mean,
I can imagine what it is like, but
they don't have supervisors, most of them. They don't have, maybe their future is not, they are not going to find jobs in the future.
well, see how. So let's give an example of India.
Mm-hmm.
So the economic situation in India used to be very bad. In fact, there's still a large amount of poverty. But there was a whole group of young Indian students who went abroad to get a good graduate education in string theory, kind of a forefront areas of theoretical physics. And then a large number of them went back to their home countries to train the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, my understanding, although I may be wrong, my understanding is that right now there are very few people, very few professors in the Arab world who have the background in cosmology or even modern theoretical physics.
Mm.
So students who grow up in that environment, they will then have to go abroad to get an education, but they will also then have to be prepared to come back. Because after all, they got their undergraduate education in an Arab country, so the Arab country invested in them, and in a certain sense it's a responsibility. If you go abroad, get your graduate education, it's a responsibility to go back. I won't be particularly worried about jobs, because in certain Arab countries there's a lot of money, in others there's less. So I think there are jobs, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably easier to find a job in an Arab country than it is to find a job in North America.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the job aspect should not be a detriment. But obviously, if they go back, if they get a very good education to go to university, for example, in Canada, and then they go back, then they'll be in a worse situation. They won't have excellent colleagues to talk to. They will then have to build something by themselves. That's a challenge.
They will start from scratch.
Well, there's some infrastructure, but in terms of their own research, they will have to start from scratch.
They will start build their research groups.
Right, but they can take as a good example what happened in India. An example is a famous string theorist, Shumik Das. So he got his undergraduate education in Calcutta, and then for his PhD he went to the United States. He did very good work, he was excellent, and he had a postdoc, maybe even 2 postdocs in the United States, but then he felt like he had to go back to his country to contribute. So he went back to his country, even though he could have gotten a faculty position in North America, he went back to his country. And he stayed there for maybe 15 years, even though his partner, his girlfriend, was in the United States. So he actually sacrificed 15 years being abroad from being away from his partner. Now, after 15 years, he decided he'd contributed substantially to India, and then he moved back.
To the US.
But in those 15 years, he trained students, and now the group that he was in India is a vibrant.
That's very good example. So, Professor Brandenberger, it was an honor to talk to you and to discuss these points with you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, thank you for interviewing me.